Andrew. Tonight's show is about restaurants that were closed but are now opening. Before I introduce you to my panel, I would like to take a moment of silence. Words of those individuals who were killed in Atlanta and Colorado. So a moment of silence. May they always be remembered. And now our show. Tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking in New York and the other in Colorado, the closures of the restaurant, how they were affected, and how they see businesses now that restaurants are opening under new restrictions and guidelines from the local government. So let's jump right into it. First, I will introduce my co-host, Andrew. How's it going?
It's going great, Rob.
And Heather, our resident journalist. How's it going, Heather?
Great, Rob. Thank you.
And now our guest. First guest is John Cox, who is the owner of Rose Canyon Cantina. Rose Canyon Cantina Grill. How's it going, John?
Good. How are you? Thank you.
Good, good, good. And also we have Eddie Travers, who is the owner of Francis Tavern in New York City. How's it going, Eddie? Eddie's mic might be turned off. Eddie, can you hear us okay?
Sorry, guys, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. So he's working on his mic. You okay now, Eddie?
He said he can't hear us, so he might have to leave and come back.
Okay. Eddie, why try logging off and coming back on? Okay, he's going to come back. Okay, so let's just go right into it. Now that we have John with us. John, how are things with you in California now that the restaurants are now opening? I think in California it might be at 50%. People can dine inside.
Yeah, we were at 25% inside now. That happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I believe we're going to meet the new threshold relatively soon, maybe in another week or two, where I believe we're going to go to 50% on the inside.
Okay. So before, well, first of all, tell everybody about your restaurant. It's a Mexican restaurant. So give us a little background about your restaurant.
Well, my wife and I ate there once a week, then twice a week, and then 3 days a week. And I figured I was spending so much money there, I might as well buy it. And, it was our favorite restaurant. It was a very unique setting. We sit on 40 acres. It's right at the base of the Cleveland National Forest. You go up a dirt road to get there. We have deer walking around. We're the only restaurant in Orange County that has hitching posts where you tie your horses up. You can come in and have a margarita, get back on your horse and tie yourself on the horse and go home a little inebriated, as long as the horse doesn't get a ticket. The owners had built this restaurant in 1956, started as a small hamburger stand. Had been in the family for years. We met the family back in about 1985, 86. Became real close with them. And then one day, the place wasn't doing well. The owners were tired and old and a little grumpy. I kept giving them new ideas, new recipes, new different ways of doing things. And one night they just said, "Why don't you and Melanie just buy it?" And we said, "Well, we didn't know it was for sale." And they said, "It's not. But for you and Melanie, we'd sell it to you." I went home that night. I asked Melanie, I said, "What do you think?" She said, "You're crazy. You're a fireman. I play tennis. We don't know how to run a restaurant." I said, "Oh, we'll figure it out." 2 days later, I bought it.
Okay. And how long have you had it?
We had it 18 years.
Wow. Okay.
We had 6 employees when we started. We have 47 now. and have it's about a 2-hour wait to get in.
Really? So when the pandemic hit, how did it affect business?
Oh, it was tough. I can kind of remember that whole first week or so. We had just gotten back from the river in mid-January. We'd been up there for a month and came back. The COVID thing had hit. There was, things starting to come out in February, mid-February or so. And I know a number of my construction projects, we were having to kind of think about those things. And all of a sudden, bam, we were shut down on March 27th. And at first, I just sat there and I said, geez, so this is going to be tough. We got a $20,000 a month escrow that we have to, or not escrow, but payment that we got to make every day to every month to the SBA. We had no money coming in. We wanted to take care of our staff. So it was a little depressing. And for about 9 weeks, Melanie and I took care of her employees. That was about $16,000 a week we were paying. And then my employees for my construction company was about $12,000-15,000 a week. So we burned through a lot of cash for 9 weeks. And finally, I wrote a letter to the staff and said, hey, we're almost tapped out. In another week, you guys might have to be collecting unemployment. And luckily, our PPP money came in, and it kind of saved things. And in the meantime, I stopped feeling sorry for myself and went out one evening. And I was sitting there at the restaurant, and I said, all these restaurants in town they've got one little small building and maybe a sidewalk to put some tables on. I've got 40 acres. So I went down about 40 barbecue tables. We spread them out all over the 40 acres under all our oak trees, put in those market lights, solar market lights, and we were up and running, and we haven't looked back. And it saved us. And in fact, it's so popular that we've got customers now calling in, making reservations to eat under the trees. So I feel blessed that we got through it, and we're making it. We're making our, we lost $1 million last year, but we're still in business.
Okay, that's good. So Eddie, how are things going with you?
They're on their way up now. I think we're definitely fighting our way back. We've obviously went through a lot, and we've changed what we do. We've did everything aside from selling car tires, I suppose, to make this thing work. So yeah, we're feeling positive.
Right, but initially when it hit, before it hit, I mean, the bar restaurant that you own is the oldest, I think, in New York City. Tell the audience just a little bit about the background.
Sure. Well, Francis Tavern, it's the oldest bar in New York. It's the oldest standing structure in New York. It was built in 1719, and it's been a bar since 1762. In fact, it's where George Washington gave his farewell address to his generals after the Revolutionary War. Anybody who loves history, it's pretty much where the conversations about setting up this country happened in our bar. The Sons of Liberty used to have their secret meetings there. It's been through a lot. Obviously, it was bombed by the British on their way out after the Revolutionary War. It was a fire there 200 years ago, and it was bombed again in the 70s by the Puerto Rican Liberation Movement. And then we had Hurricane Sandy under myself and my wife's watch, and now COVID.
Right, and you also there's a museum that's part of the restaurant, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, the museum is owned by the Sons of the Revolution of New York City. and we leased a restaurant from them.
Right. Now, before the pandemic hit, business was okay. Once it hit, how much did you for?
Like we have two restaurants. We've got one down the street as well. It's a gin-focused cocktail bar called the Lovelace. So pre-COVID, we would have had 100 employees, doing in excess of $11 million a year. So then we obviously when COVID hit, it totally shut us down. We were shut down March 16th. As an Irishman, that is very upsetting. The day before St. Patrick's Day, and we reopened August 1st. But coming out of it, it's obviously been horrible because we weren't allowed indoor dining, and then we were, and then we weren't allowed it again, and now we are again. So
Right.
it's been from 100 employees. Now we're increasing. Now we're up to about 42. So we're
Right.
definitely coming back.
Right. And what would you say? What is your thought process as to how the mayor and the governor started opening up the restaurants with the limited space? I mean, when it was shut down, it was like during the summer. I mean, during the winter. Then we hit the summer months. Do you think there was a method to the madness, I want to say, for them to shut down the restaurants the way they did, and then they waited and they waited? What was your thought process?
For me, it was very frustrating because, like everybody else in New York City, I spent my time when we were closed figuring out how we can reopen as a business owner. What do I need for my staff, my family, my customers, in order to make the space safe? So I studied what would make our air systems right. We got supplementary air filtration put into it. We have the space. It's a huge place. It's 9,000 square feet. So it's a big. It'll hold 400 people. So we've got plenty of room to space everything out. We brought in this clean air technology, or clean surface technology from that they're using in Hong Kong. So we've done everything. That's the way they should have let businesses deal with this and make sure that we dealt with it properly. Because we all know what the issues were, and the issues were the air. And then to be told that we're being closed down, and then in Governor Cuomo's next caption was 75% of infections are in your house and 1.4% in indoor dining. It made to me, it just felt like, are you trying to kill people? Because you are sending them in, because what are young people going to do? Like, I never knew anybody who got COVID until they were told that they had to meet up in their house. So it obviously upset me a lot, so it made no sense.
So how is business now for you? St. Patrick's Day, how was it? How was St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patrick's Day was great. We were at 35%. When I say great, I always, it's either BC or PC, as in post-COVID. It was very good. Like, we couldn't have done any more than what we did. People had a good time. Everyone was safe. We had live music. It felt like it was before, obviously with the restrictions in place, but we did really nicely out of it, and we're seeing businesses coming back. People are coming back to New York City. The workers are coming back. Obviously with the schools coming back as well, middle schools now, high schools. We've got a 5-year-old, and she's back in school. So now myself and my wife can work on our businesses.
Right. And Captain, I'm sure you have the same story as far as when it hit, you had to shut down. Like you said, you thought you were going to have to tell some of the staffers you're going to have to collect unemployment. As a businessman, what were your thoughts as far as what the governor and the mayors were doing, who clearly didn't understand or had no knowledge base of restaurants or how they should be, handled? What were you thinking when this came through that restaurants had to close?
Well,
Captain,
I think we were feeling the same way most people in the country felt initially. I think that everybody, including the government, did the best they could with the facts that were out there, and took some steps to try to get everybody to understand that we could have a real serious situation. And the government comes out and says that, and so we all were concerned. And I know in our case, when our Governor Newsom, and by the way, he was the first governor in the country to do the shutdown, and then after that, New York and a lot of the blue states followed after California. In retrospect, we find out now that a lot of the information was faulty. A lot of the projections were faulty. And also in retrospect, I'm not surprised that a lot of that stuff was faulty, because it comes from the same group of people that make a living on scaring the hell out of other people. So as we have gone through this thing, it started becoming pretty evident early on that restaurants were not a danger, especially if you could eat outside. And most of the COVID cases that were happening in New York and California were happening in the rest homes, and the fact that people were shut down and the stay-at-home orders, and more people were getting sick staying at home than they were going to the park. I mean, out here in California, there was a time where you couldn't even go to the beach. And probably the beach was the safest place to be versus being at home with your family inside a confined space. So there was a lot of things that were happening. And as we look back now, we can be pretty critical. I'm pretty critical of the people that were in charge. I got a phone call one night from one of our board of supervisors, and she was really frustrated with a situation down in San Clemente, down at the beach, a restaurant owner, Italian restaurant owner, being really defiant, refused to shut down, and really, I mean, in fact, the cops had been there. They were threatening to arrest him. He said, "Bring it on, arrest me, I don't care." His attorneys were there with him. He was really putting up a ruckus. So she called me and wanted my opinion of how I felt about the situation. And I told her, I said, "Listen, it's not important for you to know how I feel about it. What's important is you need to understand why he is being the way he is being." I said, "You, the governor, the fire chief, the police chief, all the government workers, you guys are all working. You haven't been shut down. You're getting your paychecks every week. There's a lot of us, the private sector, we're scared to death. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't pay rent. Our businesses are closed. People are looking at possibly losing their entire fortunes. How are they going to pay the bill? How are they paying their employees? You need to start thinking, when you guys come up with these rules and regulations, how it impacts the other side. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to understand why he's mad. That's what you need to do, is understand why he's mad." And that next day, they had a board of supervisors meeting, and they invited me to speak and things. And then the rules didn't change a lot, but at least they were starting to do the rules, at least in Orange County, with a little more deference to compassion and what the business people were faced with. The governor did. The governor in California, him and that guy, the mayor of LA, oh, they wouldn't budge. They just, Jesus.
Right.
It was terrible.
Mm-hmm. And Eddie, what are your thoughts? What are you hearing from fellow restaurant owners as far now that the restaurants are opening? I've been hearing that a lot of restaurants won't be able to return. I mean, this just demolished them. What are you hearing? You're one of the lucky ones. What are you hearing out there?
Yeah, like believe me, we are blessed, and as bad like even though we be down 75%, I know people are down 95%, and there's pretty much no coming back. And I know a lot of, I can start naming off some fantastic bars and restaurants in the city which are gone and will not be coming back. You know, it's if somebody doesn't have outdoor dining, and if they don't have people in the likes of Midtown is absolutely devastated at the moment. You know, between, you know, there's so many homeless shelters. There's nobody working there. There's no Madison Square Garden. There's no theater. You know, these guys don't stand a chance. And even with federal help, even with the PPP, it's pointless unless you've got a revenue stream. It works well if you're open, but if you're closed, it's a waste of time. It's no good to the owners. You know, you have to apply the rules. You have to pay their staff, pay their rent, pay their utilities, but there's nothing in it for the owners. So anybody who is close to the end of their lease, they're handing back the keys.
And who is your typical clientele? I mean, you're in the FIDI Financial District. Who are the people that you attract? I mean, you look at the business here in this area, a lot of them are still sheltered. People are working from home. So who are you attracting now? How is that crowd coming to you?
For us, like we like when we took over Francis Tavern 11 years ago now, it was very touristy, and we really changed that model. We worked hard in, you know, getting the local business people, getting to know our neighbours, you know, getting the locals to come there. And now, obviously, the tourists are gone. You know, the business people are mostly gone, but the locals are still there. You know, so it is primarily locals. We every week though we're seeing more and more business people coming back to work, which is great. Kids going back to school. People want to come into their offices. You know, you hear that people want to stay working from home forever. I haven't met anybody, and most of my friends who work from home, they question how they haven't been fired because they're trying to look after two kids and work at the same time. It doesn't work. So, yeah, and because of the area we're in, there's a lot of New York tourists, because New Yorkers are very smart. They're smart in what they're doing, as in they're not traveling, they're not taking risks. They're wearing their masks. They're just keeping it local. So now most of our business is coming from the tri-state area. You know,
right.
Jersey, you might get as far as Connecticut, but for the most part, you wouldn't see a tourist. You definitely wouldn't see a tourist. You know, because we know, because we take everybody's name and address. You know, so it's you know, so.
Right, and then when you were, like you said, when you were closed, you were able to utilize space on the outside. Did that help, or did you still feel strained?
Yeah, like even in the beginning, like our second restaurant it's smaller. So what we opened that when we were allowed for outdoor dining, I believe it was around the 20th of June. We wouldn't, because of the high unemployment, with the 600 extra on top of the unemployment, we wouldn't have been able to get our staff to come back. You know, so we just gathered what we could from the two places and opened up the smaller one, and then on the 1st of August we opened up the bigger one, which is Francis Tavern, because the unemployment ran out. And you know, so yes, like we've never had outdoor in Francis Tavern, but we hold 400 people inside.
Right.
So now outside, we were up to about 100 people outside. We've expanded on it this year. We've built it down along the side of it, so we should have about 200 people outside this year, which is a big help, obviously. But you're talking like without PPP, like without government help, none of it, there wouldn't be a restaurant open. Simple as that, because my accountant told me, you know, we lost $1.2 million last year.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's like you can't run your business like that, but it's not in us to. We came to this country to not to depend on government support, but
right. Now, something that Captain said, and then I'm going to open it up to my panel. is that when it happened, no one knew what was going on. So, they closed the restaurants. Do you think that was a wise choice, or do you think they should have thought of something else?
Well, personally, they were just going with the information they had at the time.
Yeah.
Of course, in hindsight, it was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all say that we can be what they call armchair quarterbacks or whatever.
Yeah, Monday morning quarterbacks, right?
Yes, exactly. But in saying that, I'd give them a break on that. But as time went on, when they did know what it was about, it got to the point where we were hearing it's about the science, the science, the science.
Yep.
Until it stopped being about the science. You know what I mean? And then that's where I went from liking what they were doing to, questioning big time what they were doing, because I could see what they were doing to us, our families, our businesses, and there was no right or there was no reason like for us, we were closed. And you go across you go in the Bronx, if you go from Katona Avenue to walk the top of Katona Avenue onto McLean, and you're in Westchester, everything was open. The guys in Katona Avenue, everything was closed. Like you're looking at your bar next door, and they're open doing business. You're doing nothing. So there was no sense. There really was no sense to it. Like there was sense in the beginning because they didn't know the facts. Then they started to know the facts, and then they stopped talking about the science.
Right. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for Eddie or John?
I was just going to say restaurants aren't like a retail shop where you just turn on the lights and you can open up. There's a lot of preparation and inventory involved. What was that adjustment been like with the new COVID restrictions and ordering and whatnot? Has that been an adjustment for you guys? John, you can answer first.
Yeah, it was a training. We had to learn here in California. Before we could get back, even the food to go, and that's how we first opened, was food to go. And then we bought those 40 picnic tables, and that allowed us to have people buy food. They didn't have to take it home. Then they could go out and somewhere on my 40 acres and eat there. So that helped a lot. We ended up putting, I think, 40 hand sanitation locations all over the property. We got 4x4s, put them in 5-gallon buckets with concrete, attached to one of these hand sanitizers that you just run your hand underneath it. And so we were now buying gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer. We had to shrink our menu down to something that worked better and not such an expansive menu during that first part. And then we found that supplies really got short. Everything, limes, avocados, tomatoes, produce, meat, everything started. We couldn't get margarita, tequila, distribution shut down. And that was pretty amazing. Because we have done so well and done so much, we were somewhat protected, and we had the ability, with as big as the property that we had, we were able to store a lot of stuff. So we did a lot of buying in bulk to try to get us through. And like Eddie was saying, it stopped becoming about the science, and in my opinion, it became about control. That's what they like to do, is control people. I think probably by June of last year, it wasn't about the science. It was about politics and control.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Heather, do you have any questions?
Gosh, it's just so heartening to hear you guys. God bless you for hanging in there. I really, I guess just, it was really interesting, and it's good to hear that the PPP has been doing what it was meant to do. I guess just maybe my question would be, going forward, what else would you like to see this administration do? Because I know, the last administration came in for so much criticism, but I thought the PPP was a great idea, and my understanding was it helped business owners keep people on the payroll. I don't know if that continues, or if there's anything else that you'd like to see the government do to help restaurateurs help themselves.
Can I answer that? Honestly, I think they've done all they can do. If the only thing I would say was that anybody who's in this business, they're in it. We're entrepreneurs. We all know the glass has been half full. We don't want to ever rely on support from anybody. But there is decisions that are made by government, and I know, obviously the minimum wage has been a big debate, and for us, like the tip credit, I don't believe that you can. This is a massive country. You can't apply this $15 to everybody. Like, we were $15 in New York City. If you're in the back end of North Dakota, I can only imagine what a restaurant owner is thinking if he has to pay a server $15 an hour, because you just hand the keys back.
Right.
There's no point in doing business. So I just think less is more.
Right. So Eddie, are you saying that if you guys were mandated to have to pay that, is that a deal killer for your restaurant?
Well, for us, we're New York City, so like ours increased from, I'd say it was very fast. Like, over 3 years, we went from probably under $8 to $15 in 3 years. Even though most people were on more than that anyway. But the problem was always with us with regards to tipped employees, because tipped employees, like, when they brought in the $15 minimum wage, there was protests here in the city, and the protests were by bartenders and servers that they did not want, because they knew what was going to happen. They knew that technology was going to take over. They knew that as a business owner, we can't, because they're making so much money on tips, that for them to get an extra $2 or $3, it means nothing. But as a business, it means the difference between making something or making nothing or losing money. So I just think that less is definitely more on that one. Everybody deserves a fair wage, but you can't compare living in New York City to living in North Dakota.
That's for sure. I spent some time in Pittsburgh and in small town Pennsylvania over these past few months, and tell you the truth, I saved a lot of money. I mean, there's nothing like New York City as far as the cost of living. Let's say.
We had this $15 an hour thing. We have a unique situation here in California where some states don't. And Eddie was alluding to it. I guess New York must be the same. We've been paying over the minimum wage ever since we started. We were always usually $2 over. We've been at 15 for a long, long time. The problem is that our tip employees are making now $50, $60 an hour.
Yeah. And
they didn't need the raise. Our kitchen staff needed it. Our bussers and the lower end kids are the ones that need those extra dollars. I've got 3 servers. They work 40 hours a week. And last year, they all 3 did about $150,000 a year. And that's with their declared tips. I don't know about what we didn't see. And each one of them, the one girl's 23. One guy is about 28 and the other guy is about 36. And all of them probably make $80,000, $90,000 a year. So as Eddie was saying, those few dollars that they really didn't need, because our restaurant tips really, really well. during this COVID stuff, we had our customers routinely dropping $300, $400, $500 to the kids, and some of them said, one guy, $1,000, and said split it among everybody, and it's been pretty routine during this entire COVID experience. The smaller restaurants, some of the towns in the Midwest and other states, that $15 can really bury them. So I think that needs to not be one size fits all. It's got to be, like Eddie said, you got to look at everything individually.
Yeah, but as well as that, like talking to people in the business, is that the problem is that, you know, anybody who has been working as bartenders or servers or musicians or Broadway performers, they're going to look at reskilling. You know, I mean, they've been burnt. You know, anything that happens in this, you've got time to think, you've time to reskill. You're getting out of the business. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a massive staff shortage. We were very lucky in that, you know, we were able to support our staff for as long as we could, and we opened up as soon as we could. So we were we're getting most of them back, I believe, in the next couple of months. You know what I mean? But I know, talking to friends of mine, there's no staff to be got, because these people come back to where they're from, or else they're doing computer courses, they're doing stockbroken courses, or doing whatever. They're getting out because they were burnt. They're not going to get burnt again, and you can't blame them. And as an owner, like, the whole talk of increasing the minimum wage even further and getting rid of tip credits, as owners, we're talking about technology. We're talking about QR codes, you know, where you're going to walk up, you're going to place your order, pay it, somebody's going to run it and drop it, and that's going to be it. Which is a sad state of affairs, because we're in the hospitality business, we're not in the tech business. You know, so I hope it doesn't go that far, but you're definitely going to see some sort of a hybrid coming in, where you're going to have an option. If you want to talk to a server, you can talk to a server. Otherwise, you can click on a QR code, get everything sent to your table, and be gone. Which is, again, I find it very sad, because it's not why I got into this business.
Right. That's interesting. That's interesting that you would say that, because I know me myself. Before COVID hit, I wasn't a person who would frequent restaurants a lot. I preferred preparing my own meals. But once it hit, and then just hearing the stories, I found myself going to those restaurants that were open and making certain to support them and giving them a generous tip and whatnot. Because, as you said, it's the hospitality business, and you don't miss something until it's gone. So I now have a greater appreciation for restaurants and the things that they do. And I hope, like you said, you know, looking at the technology side of it, a lot of people more than likely won't go back into it because they've been burned, and it's most unfortunate. Yes, Heather, you wanted to say?
Well, I had another question for you guys, which was just the whole catering and food delivery side of things. How did you do a lot of that to the restaurateurs? And it seems like that's one way some places have stayed alive. And do you think that's a trend that might stick?
Can I answer that? Personally, I hope it doesn't. I've always said that, you know, in our businesses, that you can't box up an experience and put it in the car. You know, it's not a fair reflection on our business if you're first time ordering. And I'm not saying the quality's not there, but it's not like you have to pick and choose your menu items, as in, you know, for example, our mac and cheese, which is amazing, but our chef, he uses like 5 different cheeses in it, and you know what, it doesn't, you know, if it takes 10-12 minutes to get to somebody, and we had it on for about a week, and then somebody called and complained, and I was just like, you know, take it off. The question was asked, can we make it happen, chef? He says, we can make it happen, but it's not going to be the quality that we want. So I was just like, well, pull it off then. Simple as that. So it's a supplement to what you do, but the problem is, by the time this is all over, like at the moment, these delivery platforms, they're giving us discounts And I got an email the other day that Grubhub are putting on another 5% now that things are getting better, and that's only going to be the start of it. So personally, I will just I've got one platform which goes through my own website as well. Everybody else I'm going to cut off as soon as that starts. It's a pointless exercise unless you're big into it, unless you're doing, $5,000 a day, or you have a couple of guys working for you doing it. But for us and our business models, it's definitely not the answer.
Let me ask you this. I want to ask you both of you this. Why are you in the business? Why did you choose this business to go into?
My psychiatrist died.
Okay, Captain.
Because I'm married and she wanted it.
Smart man.
Oh, geez.
Happy wife, happy life.
And
Because I think about it. I think about it. As a kid, I used to say, "Wow, I want to go into a restaurant. I want to have a restaurant. I'll have serve this. I'll have this and whatnot." And I got to add, Eddie, I've had your lobster at Mac. It is the best.
yeah, I know.
It's awesome. It's phenomenal. But I thought about it. But then I hear the stories. It's more than just a notion. I mean, people who really like it, and I look at your pictures, Captain, online. I'm like, these guys. I mean, it's more than just food. It's an experience.
Right.
Where you're going. It's an experience, and if you really find a good restaurant that you like going to, you'll frequent the place all the time. And some instances, Captain, you'll buy the place, as you did for your wife. But
for us, it was. For us, we didn't want to be in the restaurant business. We're not restaurateurs. I was a fire tennis. I own a construction company. The restaurant we loved wasn't doing well.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't duplicate that restaurant. In fact, if that restaurant didn't sit on the 40 acres that we have in the mountains with deer walking around all the time, I mean, they come walking up to the front door of the restaurant, the deer do. I wouldn't have that restaurant up in a shopping mall that's just a restaurant in a shopping mall. This is just a very unique destination restaurant. But it wasn't doing well. We didn't want to lose it in the community. It had to stay. Had I not bought it, it might have been torn down and made, some developer might have come in and tried to put some houses in this area. So we made the decision to buy it. I cooked in the firehouse for 30 years. I love cooking. I loved all my recipes from my grandmother, who all came over from Spain, my mom and them. And my wife likes cooking. So, but it is a whole different thing. Everybody that wants to have a restaurant thinks because they cook at home, they can cook at a restaurant. Holy cow. No way. Your proportions are different. Your buying's different. Your everything changes. So we had to learn that. However, I'm really, really happy we did. Our restaurant is a destination restaurant. It's an experience when you eat there. Like Eddie was saying, we do a little catering, very little, maybe 4 or 5 events a year. Usually those are donations. We do have a takeout. And the takeout, I think, is getting better because now in California, because of COVID, you can take out alcohol. So that's going to help, and I believe that's going to stay. But except for that, I'm not a thrill of catering. If you want to, you go out and to get a caterer that's in that business. Most people, I'm sure, at Eddie's restaurant and mine, much of it's about the experience of being there, and especially in New York. New York, the restaurants and the businesses and the people coming back, it is an old traditional town. And the whole atmosphere in New York, it's the business, the restaurants, the tourists, the events, everything. It's a lifestyle. And the restaurant is part of that lifestyle. So.
Yeah, and the amount of people I've met in the last couple of weeks who have come in and who are just after coming back into the city for the first time in a year that worked here. And we've started doing live music, and when the weather's nice, we put a live band outside on the street, which is crazy. We do it anyway, but they come into the bar and they're like going, you know, this is the reason why we come back to the city, as in, you know, like, other than this, there's no reason for us to jump on a train from Long Island to come into an office to go back onto the train. You know, it's for experiences like we offer. You know, and that's what makes every city, doesn't matter where you are, that's what makes your cities great.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the original question with regards to why we do this,
Mm-hmm.
I know for me personally, it was in Ireland, when you're 16 or 17 years old, you have to choose your university. But in Ireland, it's not like you go to a university. You go to a university for whether it be business, you know, architecture, law, whatever it might be. You have to decide when you're 16 years old what you want to do for the rest of your life. So my mother says, you love bartending, why not do hospitality? So hotel and catering management is what I did in university, and owning my own businesses. My dad never worked for anybody in his life, so I guess that's I didn't lick it off the ground.
Mm-hmm. And so when this hit, you had no reservations. You wanted to reopen and get back with it when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, like, you know, we went through Hurricane Sandy, which was devastating for us. You know, more so on a, like, but it was a physical destruction, as in, you know, we a lot of damage, like probably $250,000 worth of damage. Shut us down for 5 weeks, but you know, we come back out of that, like within, say, 4 months maybe. We come back out of that. This one is just totally different. There's no physical scars, but the scars on the business. There was never any option. Like anybody who I know, anybody who's an entrepreneur, a restaurant owner, you know, all we see is there isn't an option. Failure is not an option.
Okay.
You know, so it's you drive it as hard as you can. You make changes. Like we're selling merchandise. We open up a beer store in the back of the tavern. You know, obviously doing deliveries. You know, if we're doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay.
Trying to generate revenue.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is your signature dish? I'll ask you both. What is a signature dish at your restaurant? What would you recommend if I were to come right now? I'm not going to get on a plane, Captain, and fly out there. And I think you guys are about to close, Eddie. But what would you recommend someone who's coming and as your signature dish?
For my restaurant, I would say, even though every bit of it's great, we have a pretty extensive menu.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite, and most people that come there, is our Monterey chicken enchiladas. They're pretty amazing. Our tortilla soup is really unusual, but people buy it. Oh my God, they eat it all the time. And of course, the margaritas.
Okay. And Eddie, what would you say your signature dish?
I'd say for us, it's probably our chicken pot pie. It's been 11 years in the process of getting to where it is, but it's pretty outstanding. You know, it's we did a New York restaurant week, which turned into a month, and we couldn't keep it in house.
Really?
The feedback was that it was the best offering of any restaurant.
What about the lobster mac and cheese?
Yeah, I know it is legendary. I've got people who come in and that's all they have every time they come in, and for us as well. Like we have our own brewery and microbrewery in Ireland, and we have our own distillery. So we obviously our own craft beers are pretty amazing, and obviously we've won awards with our gin as well. So it's big into the booze, but yeah, The pot pie is amazing, and look, it's like for us, it's everything is made from scratch. Everything is
Wow.
right. We try to keep everything local. We use the small bread guy in Staten Island, our fish guy. It's all locally sourced. For us, it's like we won't represent any large corporation. That's sort of our motto. So you don't get the king of beers or anything like that in with us. Everything has to have a story, whether it be our coffee is like Stumptown Coffee. They give a fair price to the farmers. There's a story behind everything we sell, including our food. So I think that sort of passion, you can see it in our offering.
Right. And what about shepherd's pie? Do you have that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It broke up there.
Shepherd's pie?
Well, we had it. We had shepherd's pie on last week.
Okay.
For St. Patrick's Day. We do a porter beef pie in winter time. Obviously, it's changing now and next week. But our porter beef pie, which we make with our own porterhouse plain porter, which we brew ourselves. So it is outstanding as well.
Okay. Heather, you had another question, I think?
Aaron, would it be correct to say you're an Irish restaurant, like a traditional Irish pub, or no?
No. It's I think over the years the Irish pub has really changed. It's become more modern. The whole thing of seeing shamrocks and green beer and corned beef counters and stuff like that is pretty much a thing of the past. But the Irish, like, even though I'd say probably about at least 50% of the bars and restaurants in New York are probably Irish owned, now you're seeing the paddy whackery is gone. It's more about top quality beers, cocktails, and food. It's more representative of what Ireland is, as opposed to no offense to the Blarney Stones back in the day, but they gave Irish food an awful name.
So you guys are more fusion of the traditional Irish with your gastropub kind of upscale.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, do you have any other questions?
No, I think we've covered just about everything for the restaurants.
Yep. And what about you, Captain? Anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just one little thing, and it's just kind of a little bit of a story, and it goes to what Eddie was talking about a little bit ago, about everything being fresh, made when you order it. Us being brand new to the restaurant 18 years ago, I think it was our first week, and we had a bunch of the suppliers coming in, and some big name U.S. Food and Cisco and those guys came in. They sat down with us, and they knew I didn't know anything. So they had these little black bags with samples of this and samples of that, and everything was about major profit margins and saving money everywhere you could go. And I listened to them for a little bit. And then they took this bag out of this thing and they go, let's talk guacamole. I said, okay. So they take this plastic bag out and it's got green stuff in it. I go, what's this? They said it's pre-processed guacamole. Big profit margin, really, really good. You guys make a lot of money. I said, hey, why don't you guys come with me? So we got up, walked back to my kitchen. I opened the walk-in, and I took an avocado out of the box. I said, "See this? This is an avocado. This is what we make our guacamole. Don't ever take another one of these things out of the bags. I don't want any frozen enchiladas. Nothing. We make everything fresh. You give me tomatoes, tortillas, onions, and stuff. We will cut them up, make them, and make our food. Take that guacamole and get it out of here."
Take that guac and shove it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but, and it's funny. We in the beginning in the tavern, we were always trying to, people obviously in, Friday, New York, people coming in, and saying, I got 10 minutes, can I get a burger in 10 minutes and out the door? You know what I mean? Because I'm so busy. And in the beginning, we would, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And we go into the kitchen, we say, chef, get that out as fast as we can. I don't care, take it from somebody else, whatever. But then if it eventually got to the point we were like going, I remember a guy came in, he says, I need to get a burger in 10 minutes. And I said, you go up the block there, there's a Burger King on the left-hand side. Everything here is cooked from scratch.
So like I said, it's all about the experience when you go to a restaurant. And I think that those restaurants that are able to provide the experience, I was looking at your site, Captain, and the location, it's unique. I'm like, man, it definitely an experience and sit and eat. And if you're on the outside, like you said, you see the deers, you see nature. It's all about the experience and the food. And if the individuals that are able to offer that, I think they will succeed. Without a doubt.
100%. Like, after the 2008 financial mess that the world was in, we seen it in Ireland. Like, just traveling back to Ireland before 2008, like the quality wasn't there in restaurants. Even in regards to steaks weren't as good as they were in New York because they were so fresh in Ireland that they didn't leave them hang long enough, so they weren't tender. You know what I mean? Like, but after after that happened, those who survived were the best restaurants that have survived. And all the ones that were doing a crap job, they were the ones who failed. So I do feel that anybody who comes out the other end, we are going to get a better quality restaurant throughout this country.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other thoughts from my panel or the guest on restaurants that are opening up? It seems as if, though, from just talking to these two restaurant owners, that things seem pretty optimistic for those restaurants that are willing to stay there and make it happen. There are others, unfortunately, that won't be able to survive. But if you have that passion and that drive, hopefully, with the experience and the food, they will be able to come back, considering all things considered, that is, with the increase in minimum wage. I mean, I agree with you both that you've got to look at the areas that it's in, because it just can't be across the board. You can't mandate it. Otherwise, a lot of restaurants will fold up because it just won't work. It's going to cut into their bottom line. So, any other commentary from my panelists or guests?
Well, Eddie, if you get out to California, you come and see us. I'll buy your drink.
Love this. You start traveling again. I tell you, I'll be out there in a shot.
Yeah, hopefully soon that people will be back out on the road, traveling and going and visiting everyone.
Absolutely.
So, yes,
We won't make you quarantine for 14 days if you visit from New York.
You don't have to do that in New York either now.
Just do me a favor. Don't bring Como with you. We already got a crazy governor here.
I think Colm was a bit busy at the moment. He might be able to make our reunion.
yeah, I think he's busy kissing people, men and women. So, well, I want to say this is, at the top of the hour, this is going to conclude our show for tonight. I want to thank our guests, Eddie and the Captain, for joining us and giving us insight on what the restaurants are going through, what they were before, during the pandemic, and now after. And we just hope and pray that they are successful so that we can all get there and visit them. I mean, me, myself, I'm right down the street from Eddie, so I'll probably be coming in tomorrow for that lobster mac and cheese, which I love so much.
Cheers, guys.
Absolutely. So we'll end this segment. My panel, you guys have anything else? Otherwise, we'll just shut down.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Captain Cox. Best of luck to you guys, and
Best of luck.
yep, future success.
Just love your entrepreneurial spirits, guys. Really a lot of hope, and wonderful to hear you, and your hope for the future and your resilience is very inspiring.
Absolutely. Thank you. God bless.
Thanks, guys.
Have a nice
Thank you.
night. Thank you.